really amazing is looking at what you all have done with that support. We've tallied it, groups that we support, a network of groups, 30 to 40 organizations over the years, has protected over 40,000 acres of land in San Diego County. And they've leveraged nearly $200 million in public and private funding for those efforts. So very small contribution on our part, but incredible leveraging on your part in terms of habitat protected, an interconnected network of open space that's been created, and money that's been brought into our region to support this critical work. And you've also engaged over 25,000 volunteers in our region. And I know all of these things are undercounts, but they're just the things we've measured year over year in looking at the work that you've done as a result of the grants that we've made in the community, which are but one small contribution. And we're also excited that there's been some incredible research that's been undertaken by organizations or by other university partners that have really contributed to our understanding of who has access to parks, how climate change will affect our region, what are the ways in which we can reduce air pollution to protect and enhance our clean air in the San Diego region, and a number of other things. So I think, again, we have an incredible community here that we're really eager to find ways to support and partner with in the coming year. And I just want to say we're very excited about this upcoming Opening the Outdoors grant cycle. And I am transitioning out of my role as the environment program head, but excited to have the new here on this call. Some of you may already know Nicola Hedge and Emily Guevara, but I'm really delighted to turn over the reins to them. So,
great, thank you. So just a little bit of information about today's webinar. I'm Emily Guevara, just so you all know. So a few notes about today. We're going to cover both of the grant opportunities on this webinar, the Opening the Outdoors and the Conservation Catalyst Fund opportunities. And we anticipate we'll probably have about 30 minutes presentation on our end, maybe hopefully less. And then we'll have a good amount of time to answer questions that you all have. So ready with questions once we're done. We are going to try to keep you all on mute just so we don't get too much feedback noise and people can hear okay. If you think of it, put your own phones on mute as well, just in case people fall through. And then we do have this chat function on through the panel on the side, and so feel free to, if you're having any issues or questions that pop up, we'll try to monitor those as we go as well, but we'll definitely have time for additional questions at the end. And then just wanted to let you know that this session is being recorded, and we anticipate being able to share it with you all afterwards so that you can refer back to it, and also so that folks who couldn't be on this webinar can still have access to that information. So keep an eye out for that as well. So as Emily mentioned, the team that you will be dealing with throughout this grant cycle, our environment team, is Emily Young, who, as she mentioned, is now Vice President of Community Impact, and our fall within that program. So we're really excited to have her leadership. And then we have Nicola Hedge, who is the Director of our Environment Initiatives, and you'll hear from her in a little bit as well. And then myself, Emily Guevara, Manager of the Environment Initiatives. And then I also just wanted to mention, many of you may have worked with Marisa Quiroz in the past, and we're really excited for her. She's moved on to another opportunity with the International Community Foundation, and we're very sad to lose her, but we're really excited for her. She's going to be there for environmental conservation. So again, just we are really excited to carry on her vision and her passion through this grant cycle. So first, just wanted to touch on a few reports that many of you may have seen. The first one is our Greater San Diego Vision Report, and this really highlights results from a survey that we put out, and we received more than 30,000 responses through this survey, and it became clear that San Diegos are most concerned with opportunities to improve where we work, enjoy, live, and learn. And then more specifically, to enjoy and improve the quality of life in our region, beautiful and accessible environment is a high priority among San Diegans. So we're, of course, very excited to hear that, and want to incorporate those wishes and those issues in our work moving forward. And then we have the Parks for Everyone report, which really highlights the park-poor communities in our region. Parks and green space provide many benefits to our region, including health and wellness. They help build communities. They provide economic and environmental benefits. Unfortunately, though, not everybody has easy access to these green spaces. So we really hope that through this work, we can have an impact through partnering with other organizations that are working to address this discrepancy. So wanted to highlight these reports. If you haven't seen them already, I encourage you to take a close look, as these have been and will continue to be very important moving forward, especially through these two grant opportunities. So just some quick background on these grant opportunities and a timeline. So as you all probably know, the guidelines were released earlier this month. And the big date to remember is February 12th. That's when all the proposals are due. Early March is when we anticipate doing site visits and interviews with some of the finalists. And then late March is when we anticipate making a final recommendation to our board so that the grants can be awarded in early April. So that's just kind of a brief highlight of the process. And here's just a few more details for you to note. They are, like I said, they're due February 12th by 12 noon. And there's information about the specifics in the guidelines that are on our website. We have a volunteer group consisting of 16 members that do the reviewing and make the final decisions on these grants. And they're a wonderful group, a great resource to our community. They have a lot of personal and professional experience with the environment and the outdoors and recreation. So they're definitely a huge asset to our region and very important to our decision-making in this grant cycle. And again, we also have more information about that group on our website. And so, again, just a little more information about how the proposals are evaluated and some of the merits that we look at. The first one is just the relevance of the proposed project to the guidelines. We're going to go through what some of those guidelines are, and they're also outlined in the document online. We look at the capacity and leadership of the organization as well as their track record. We just want to make sure that we're supporting organizations that will continue to do important work and have an impact in our community. And then we also look at the budget, and it's not only the budget for the proposed work, but also what additional funding might be leveraged as a result of this project. So just some things to keep in mind when you're going through the process. And then finally, we just wanted to point out that we have a strict conflict of interest policy, and this is just to make sure that it's an even playing field for all of our applicants. So the first grant cycle we're going to talk about is opening the outdoors. We have a long history, as Emily mentioned earlier, in our environmental work here at the San Diego Foundation. And our work moving forward will likely focus on continuing to strengthen collaborations that will protect and enhance our open spaces and provide better access to these wonderful areas in our region. And see this reflected in the priorities for this grant cycle. So the first one, advance community-driven efforts to develop an interconnected network of natural areas, gathering places, and trails across the county. So, and again, it's not only just about protecting and connecting the natural areas, but also making sure that all San Diegans have access to these areas. Some eligibility requirements. So applicants must have 501c3 status and then also be located in and serve San Diego County. We want to make sure that these impacts are really felt in our region. A 501c3 organization can serve as a fiscal sponsor for another applicant to administer the grant and provide regular financial reporting to the foundation. We really value and encourage collaborations, but we just want to make sure that where there are collaborations that you're also including letters of confirmation from each partner. And just as a note, that those letters will not be part of the page limit for the application itself. And then this just shows what kind of projects we're looking for this grant cycle. So projects that contribute to one or more of the following: increasing the trails and signage and natural amenities in neighborhoods where resources are So really getting at access, making sure that that we're improving access to outdoor areas throughout our region. We're looking for projects that encourage kids from park-poor communities to engage with the natural environment, and this could be through physical or educational activities. And then, again, connecting and protecting nature, and this could be through conservation or restoration or acquisition of key lands, and even building support, community support for relevant public policies or funding. Just a little bit of insight into what types of projects might be given preference, and we will look for proposals that focus on one or more of the following. So a community-driven initiative that is already underway, where funding would strengthen the collaboration and integration between entities and partners. We'd love to see projects that strengthen organizations' capacity to match regional demographics and demonstrate how diversity, equity, and inclusion are relevant to the goals of the project itself. And then also projects that are engaging communities in a way that builds public awareness and connects people to the outdoors, or also that builds public support for relevant public policies and funding as well. So that's just a quick overview of the Opening the Outdoors initiative. I'll pass it to Nicola to talk about the Conservation Catalyst Fund opportunity, and then we'll get into some questions.
Great. Thanks, Emily and Emily. I just want to pause and just echo the things that my colleagues here have said, just in terms of being really excited at this opportunity to both learn more about the work that you're doing in the community and find ways that we can support and partner with you. This is, we're really excited to have this both Opening the Outdoors and Conservation Catalyst Fund opportunities, and it's really great to see a lot of familiar names on the webinar here. There's also some new names, and I'm excited as my role expands from some of the climate work that I've been doing here with the San Diego Foundation into more broad environment work as part of this Community Impact Department. So I'm excited to get to know you all more over the coming weeks and months, and also to learning more about the work that you're doing. And just wanted to also pause for a second and encourage you, if you do think of questions along the way that we haven't gotten to yet, or that you just want to make sure rise to the top, do put them in the chat function. We're going to be using that as the main way to go through our questions. And we'll also start the question period with the Opening the Outdoors grant cycle, and then move into questions about the Conservation Catalyst, just because we do anticipate probably more questions about the grant opportunity through Opening the Outdoors. But on to the Conservation Catalyst Fund. This is a relatively new fund and opportunity. This is the second of two funding opportunities that are available right now with deadlines to February 12th. The difference in this fund is really that this time it's fashioned as a loan only, and we're really looking at projects that we can help support through zero interest loans that will help to create the conservation, connection, and space and parklands. And this started really just a few years ago when we started bringing together donors and other nonprofits and folks working within the region, as well as other donors outside of the region, and how can the San Diego Foundation bring even more resources to this issue and deploy resources in other creative ways to really help get behind a movement of organizations, and all of your organizations really doing this important work to protect and connect open space in San Diego. And one of the opportunities that emerged through discussions was that the opening of a Conservation Catalyst Fund could help both attract different kinds of donors who might be interested in supporting low-interest loans to groups and or kind of quick turnaround grants that could help bridge gaps between the work that you're doing to protect open space, recognizing that oftentimes conservation organizations can lack the necessary funding to pay for the kinds of work that you need to do to get those acquisitions done. Assessments, land appraisal, transaction and management fees, etc. And so we had brought together a few groups working on this issue on a regional basis. We looked out to talk to groups that were working in a variety of locations within San Diego and regionally, and through that started this Conservation Catalyst Fund. And last cycle it was an invite only, and this time we wanted to open it up, and because there's a smaller amount of funding this time, and there's about $60,000 available, we've made it, and we really wanted to test out how much and how useful loans can be to catalyze and or fill time-sensitive gaps in some of the work that you're doing. So the other interesting thing about this opportunity is that it's really a grant, or excuse me, a loan opportunity that is for conservation groups and also by conservation groups. Some of the groups that we had invited and then who replied and said they'd like to be involved to do this work regionally are our partners listed on the slide here: Conservation Biology Institute, the Conservation Fund, Endangered Habitats League, San Diego Zoological Society, and the Trust for Public Land. And so representatives from those organizations, as well as volunteers from our Opening the Outdoors Vision Action Team or Volunteer Committee, will be reviewing the proposals. Our priorities are to support zero-interest loans, to support, again, the creation and management of a system of open spaces, also to provide this loan funding that is needed to accelerate efforts to protect and enhance our rare and diverse habitat and wildlife, as I mentioned. The eligibility requirements, similar to the other opportunity, are that you must have 501c3 status and be located in and also serve San Diego County. If you're not a 501c3, you'd also have to find another organization that can serve as your fiscal sponsor. And we also ask that any collaborations also include kind of letters of commitment or confirmation about the partnership. Projects that we are looking to support through this Catalyst Fund are, again, land management activities, also habitat restoration projects, and then finally, as we've mentioned, land acquisition and some of those associated costs, transaction fees, appraisal costs, and other related expenses that really help these acquisitions happen. We are going to also look at proposals for this loan fund that have a high likelihood to be completed within 24 months. We know that this is not always a straight line from beginning to end in making these things happen, but we do want to have there be a likelihood that this project will go forward and that it will go forward within a 2-year period. We're also going to be looking and have asked questions you'll see in the guidelines related to the budget and your ability to repay the loan opportunity. We are also going to be looking at the location of this project and how it will help advance habitat connectivity within county here and the larger network of protected lands throughout San Diego. And then lastly, also how you are looking to involve partnerships and collaborations among organizations. Again, we know a lot of these acquisitions and projects don't happen without strong partnerships and collaborations with other private and public organizations. So with that, we we wanted to move on to just a very brief description of the proposal checklist. And they're very similar for both the Opening the Outdoors grant opportunity, which again has about $450,000 available for the grant opportunity through Opening the Outdoors, as well as $60,000 for the Conservation Catalyst Loan Fund. And to apply, we hope we've made it as clear as possible in the guidelines, but overall, you'll see there's two parts. The first part is an online form, and we know the web link there is a little funky, but it's a Google form, and it's a very simple form just to put some high-level information and contact information about your organization and contact info, the amount you're applying for, and a quick summary of the project. And then the bulk of your proposal will be submitted via Part 2, a PDF that we ask you pull in a narrative form and submit to Emily Guevara. Here's her email address. And we do have a 5-page limit. If you can say it more concisely, that is A-OK as well for the Opening the Outdoors, and then 6 pages for the Conservation Catalyst. We know we asked a couple more questions around just your kind of repayment plan and if you've taken loans out before, and if so, how that worked. And then there are more details within the guidelines. So again, we really do encourage you to take some time and check those out. Each part has various pieces. The narrative, we're going to be asking you to go over your program, kind of timeline. We're going to be asking you a question about how you would evaluate it, and including proposed metrics. These are really helpful for us to understand the work that you're proposing, as well as communicate that to our volunteers, and really understanding how overall the portfolio that we'll be able to support will impact San Diego. Other metrics folks have used in the past are miles of trails developed, the number of kids that they're able to engage in the outdoors through the programs, number of acres protected, dollars leveraged with this funding. We also ask you to go into your staff qualifications, kind of your track record, and then the roles and responsibilities of those that will be involved. And then lastly, a budget and a little bit of a narrative about the budget as well, just to help us understand how our funding will fit into the larger picture of your program. And then we do, again, ask for letters of commitment from each of your partners. And, you know, it doesn't have to be all worked out at the very beginning, but we're really looking for, if you're proposing, you know, significant activities of partners, or there's some money in the budget for multiple organizations, that you at least clearly delineate that there's commitment to do that, and that they're on board to get started. With that, we wanted to point out some additional resources. We've got a couple links here to the types of organizations and projects that we've funded in the past. That being said, you know, our guidelines are really the best source of our priorities this year and what we're going to fund. So I think those past examples are great, and they may give some ideas for potential partners in your work, but also our guidelines are pretty clear about our priorities this year. We also wanted to point out that we'd love to hear from you. If you have questions about anything, about any of the requirements, about how best to structure the project in a way that meets the guidelines. We do, in addition to this webinar, we have office hours. Both Emily Guevara and I are available Thursdays from 10 to noon. And we just asked if you could give us a heads up, even if it's the day before, that you'll be coming in. That way we can make sure to be ready and available, and also make sure we don't have too many folks coming at the same time, to make sure we maximize your time as well. And then also a couple other resources of the San Diego Foundation. We are a partner with Nonprofit Management Solutions. They do have a great resource up at their Kearney Mesa location with grant databases, their workshops, and lots of other resources that they offer for nonprofits if you're also looking for other funding. And then lastly, we do have, as many of you are already aware and on, we have our Better Giving database of nonprofits, which is a great tool for us to communicate your work and your priorities and your successes to the community as well as donors who may be looking at that as well. And with that, we had some really quick FAQs to get you started on thinking about some of your questions. I see some of them coming in here, which is great. First, can I apply for both grant opportunities? Absolutely. But again, knowing that the Opening the Outdoors grant cycle is about $450,000 currently we have available to grant out, and that's in grants. And then the Conservation Catalyst Fund is about $60,000 and available through loans. And other FAQs. Oh, I'm just going to go back here. I don't know why that went. Another FAQ, what happens on a site visit? Some of you may have been through this process before, but we really use the opportunity to, after our volunteers have reviewed your proposals, the site visits offer just a wonderful opportunity to bring to life your project and for our volunteer review committee to see some of the places you're working, some of your programs in action, meet some of the key stakeholders, and in the past I've taken all kinds of forms. Sometimes there's not really an appropriate way to go out and view something, so we've had a meet and greet here at the San Diego Foundation, more kind of an interview, meet and greet style, and then other times we've been able to take volunteers on a short walk and see some of the areas that that you're protecting, or the areas that you're looking to restore, or some of the maybe there's a program that's already underway where they can meet a couple of the participants if you're getting kids outdoors, for instance. So but we really encourage you to, if you're invited for a site visit, not to feel like you need to pull out all the stops. It's really just an opportunity to bring the words on the proposal to life, and also for us to get a chance to meet you and to ask questions, as well as for you to ask questions of the San Diego Foundation as well. And we may not do site visits for all finalists, so don't be concerned as well if there's not one scheduled. And in general, the time frame we'll be doing these is March 2nd to March 17th. So if you can keep that in mind. How is our volunteer review committee selected? We've had a long history at the San Diego Foundation of working with volunteers. We have some 300+ volunteers that serve so generously on a variety of volunteer committees, whether it's our regional affiliate foundations, our disaster fund board, and so the Opening the Outdoors committee has been in existence as a transition from our environment working group. And we look for a diversity of expertise, a diversity of relationships throughout the county, of age, interests, and the like. And so we think we have a really great group, and we're really, again, grateful to them for their time in helping to review. But you should be rest assured that there's a great group with a lot of expertise about this subject on the committee. Fourth, the dollars, where do they come from? As a community foundation, we source these grant dollars from a variety of sources, whether it's our discretionary funding here at the foundation or some of the many different donors that we work with. There's some 1,900 different funds that are housed here at the San Diego Foundation, and there are some of those donors who give to this competitive pooled philanthropy approach. Better Giving, I actually think we talked about that. We do encourage you to look at that database and participate in it if you can. And then lastly, when do I get my check? When would the grant start? we anticipate making final decisions, as Emily Guevara mentioned, at the end of March, and so we would anticipate your project starting early April. And we know some projects you might propose, you know, our timeline for the Opening the Outdoors grant cycle is really a year. So if you can think about, you know, what could we fund out of your work that meets these priorities that you could finish within 1 year, and the Conservation Catalyst Fund is more is 2 years for that loan opportunity. So with that, oh, and I would also just mention we do, for those who may not have received a grant in the past or be familiar, we also request a progress report after about 6 months, and then a final report from grantees as well. So that's something else that you should anticipate. So with that, we'll really want to take your questions. I know we have some here queued up that we can kind of just go through and address. And then do encourage you to keep submitting questions. And again, we're going to try to start with the Opening the Outdoors grant cycle and then move into the Conservation Catalyst. So maybe Emily Guevara, I know you were, you may have been reading these as I was talking. So if you want to go ahead.
So I'm just going to kind of go in order of what we've received so far, and feel free to keep sending them in, and we'll go through them as they come up. So first one is asking about research that is taking place at the foundation, and that, you know, the foundation is proud of this research and hopes to see it continue. Is the collection of environmental data or development of research something that would fit in the Connect and Protect area of Opening the Outdoors? And if it is done by teaching underparked youth to do the fieldwork or data analysis.
I would say, and perhaps either of you want to chime in, this is Nicola, but that Emily Guevara mentioned our Greater San Diego Vision and the Parks for Everyone report, that those are really great guides for us as a department, as a foundation, in terms of long-term priorities of San Diegans that emerged through our Greater San Diego Vision. And then the Parks for Everyone report was something released in 2010, I believe, but it continues to serve as a guide for recognizing that while we have some 45% of the county protected as open space, there's a lot of disparity throughout the county. And then we just, as a staff, on an ongoing basis, monitor different other data that we see. We also rely on our volunteer review committee to bring that as they review the proposal.
And I would just say, in terms of this, the question of applying for money to collect data, I would just say if your first priority is getting kids outdoors and you're using the data collection as a way to do that, that would certainly qualify for grant. But if it's more about the data collection as the lead, and that it's using kids to do that, that might not be such a competitive proposal. And then on the second question about government applying, I'm happy to take this. We've had this before.
Okay.
Government can apply. We do give preference first and foremost to nonprofits, but if say a city's applying for something, they'll have a greater chance if they are partnering with nonprofits. But we do tend to give preference to 501c2 organizations. But because governments are public charities, they are public and tax exempt, we can fund them.
The next question, is there a specific date for grants need to be spent by if awarded for the Opening the Outdoors grant? And so I think we've touched briefly on some of this. Nicola mentioned that the grants would go out probably early April. And then we do ask for progress reports and final reports that are usually, progress report is usually 6 months out, and then the final report is over a year out. So we usually anticipate that within that year the project is completed, and then we give you some time after that, maybe like a month or two, to finish up the progress report. So on our end, we anticipate projects have a year after the grant has gone out.
And we recognize, and the committee is well aware that sometimes these projects that you're working on have a really, they are long-term, and that you may not solve all the world's issues in a year. However, there are a lot of things that you can parse out, and we encourage you to be clear about what you do hope you can achieve within the year, and also not feel like you have to, really overpromise just to receive the grant, but just being clear about what you think is realistic to be achieved within the year.
So then the next one was just more of a request, I think, to send links to past grants for opening the outdoors, or at least what used to be called the Environment Program, because I think what may be online, there's only about 5 projects, and what we have is a PDF that really highlights the work of the Environment Program and some of the grants that we gave out, actually all of the grants that we gave out in 2012, and it's a pretty extensive list, so you can kind of see what we've funded historically, which may look a little bit different, but it still has a lot of the elements that we're prioritizing for opening the outdoors, which is protecting and connecting natural areas and improving access to the outdoors. So we can send this PDF around to the folks that are on this webinar when we send out the recording as well. So hopefully that helps with that request. And then, is participation in Better Giving mandatory or optional? It's not mandatory, but we highly encourage it. It has been a great resource to a lot of nonprofits in our community. Yes, it's definitely optional and not mandatory, and you won't be prioritized or not prioritized whether or not you have one, so don't worry about that. Okay, for Conservation Catalyst Fund, how do you evaluate the potential for reimbursement? If used for a land transaction, what happens if the transaction falls through?
And in this one, this is a new kind of fund for us, the Conservation Catalyst Fund. We have one loan out right now and are waiting for report on it. So what we would say is we really want you to outline what you think are the best prospects for repaying the loan and why, and your timeline for that, where you expect the money to come in, who would be the takeout partner, for instance, on a property where they reimburse, your appraisal fees or what have you. So we do understand that sometimes these things fall through, but we really are looking at the prospects for creating a revolving loan fund, and this is a pilot.
And then another request is just to distribute the reports, our Greater San Diego Vision and the Parks for Everyone report. So they're on our website, so what we can at least do is provide a link. They're pretty large documents in PDF form, so we can at least provide a link to where you can find them on our website. Happy to do that as follow-up as well. Okay. And the next question, I understand it is a county-wide program, but within the county, what if any areas have a greater need? Is there any focused area within the county? So I would encourage in this one, again, in the Parks for Everyone report, there are some really great maps that highlight what areas might be the most park poor. So that's one resource that you could look at in terms of where priority might be. And then Nicola, I think there's some information in the guidelines as well that Nicola will touch on.
Yeah, and we really encourage you to make that case to us as well. Why is the specific area that you're working in, timely or particularly have an opportunity to acquire land? We know that, again, we're looking across 3 different areas. So whether it's kind of increasing trails, signage, natural amenities in neighborhoods where resources are deficient, that was one area. So again, we've kind of called out in that that we're really looking for you to make the case about how those neighborhoods or communities, areas really need that investment at this time. Again, the second priority area, encouraging kids from park poor communities, and we've been using, again, that Parks for Everyone report to kind of define that and bring them to engage with the natural environment throughout the county. So, often it's really bridging the gap from kids in communities where there aren't a whole lot of access points to the outdoors to many different areas within the county. And then the third one, protecting and connecting nature through conservation, restoration, and acquisition of key lands, and or building community support for relevant public policies or funding to support them. And so that work really is, again, throughout the county in areas that are, help to create key corridors between different areas of open. And we have a really great, again, set of volunteers with a lot of deep experience throughout the county, south, north, east, and coastal as well. So we definitely look to you to make the case, as well as rely on them to help us figure out how we can best support work throughout the county. And we really do try to support a diversity of projects geographically.
Great. So the next question, will proposals submitted by a 501c3 that is partnering with a governmental agency be considered as competitive as nonprofits partnering with other nonprofits? And in this case, if they're both coming from nonprofit groups, and what we like to see, we really do like to see partnerships and collaborations, and so we won't prioritize certain partnerships over others, but what we're really looking for is a case for why those partners are really important to this project. So I think just keep in mind why each partner is included and really make that case for us. And like I said, we are excited to hear about collaborations and partnerships.
And as Emily Young said earlier, really where there's any prioritization is on the lead partner. I think each application really has to be clear about the lead partner and making sure that we would give preference to a lead partner being a nonprofit. But we've definitely supported many projects in the past with strong collaboration with public institutions and cities and other public agencies.
Next question, do you have a minimum size of grant for the Opening the Outdoors grant, and any thoughts about the average size? We don't have a specific set minimum size for the grant. In the past, again, we'll send out the information on previous grants, but I think they've ranged from $10,000 to $15,000 up to the maximum for that grant cycle. And with this grant cycle, the maximum is $50,000 for an individual organization, and then up to $75,000 for a collaborative among 3 or more organizations. I think the main thing to keep in mind is just what amount is really going to have an impact. That's what we're looking for in the proposal. So both minimum and maximum, not just because you can. It's really what's that amount that's going to make the impact that you're looking to make, and that's what we'll be looking for in the proposal.
And with the funding available, we may support anywhere from kind of 9 to 15, I'm assuming, proposals through the Opening the Outdoors grant cycle. And in the past, we also had to ask organizations, because we have limited funding, but there was a high priority on a certain number of groups. What would you do with, say, 20% less funding? And we have had to support work where we couldn't support the whole project, but maybe there was an aspect about it we could, or there's a way that we said, hey, is it tenable for you to scale back some of the work and or try to seek funding to complete projects from elsewhere? So that has been something we've had to do in the past, but as much as possible for those selected, we'll try to support the whole project.
And the next question is, does the grant for Opening the Outdoors support strengthening our board or leadership in such things as hiring diverse staff to better match demographics in our area, as well as for marketing to specific groups not represented by our membership demographics to be more inclusive? And what we would say is that our first goal is we really want to see projects that are helping to advance, the completion of more trails and signage and natural amenities, especially in Park 4 areas, as well as encouraging kids from Park 4 communities to really engage with the natural environment, get outdoors, and then the connecting and protecting nature. If you have a project where you're going to be, you really want to have your board engaged in the process, you want to strengthen your board so that you can really diversify your outreach to kids. And the outcome still is getting more kids from Park Fork Communities Outdoors. That's great. And if part of what you need funding for is to work with your board, that's great. You would just have to connect it back to the bigger goals. So we have those 3 ones that are outlined in the proposal on trail signage, kids outdoors, and the connect and protect.
The next question here, will preference be given to a year-round or ongoing project proposal over a standalone project such as a county-wide event? And it kind of links to what Emily was just saying in terms of our, really looking at those 3 core areas that we're hoping to support, increasing trails, natural amenities in neighborhoods where resources are deficient, getting kids outdoors and to engage with the environment, and protecting and connecting nature through conservation, restoration, and acquisition. And so if you're making the case that a specific one-time event is really needed because, you need that time to invest in collaboration or coordination, or you've been doing certain programs and you'd like to test out something bigger, and you're not sure if it will go forward. But I don't think that I would say there's a preference for an ongoing project versus a standalone, but we do also look at the sustainability of projects in general and how well this funding will have an impact in the community above and other projects and proposals. So I think that's something that the committee weighs seriously. Thing that we've supported and some of our donors here have supported are kind of placemaking efforts, and I think those kinds of things where you're bringing the community together, you're perhaps getting them as a part of the community that's unsafe next to a canyon, and there's a lot of opportunity to improve it and improve access for the community to the canyon. And so you'd really like to get the community together in a one-time kind of placemaking initiative. It has kind of a discrete beginning and an end. That's an example of like a one-time kind of project that we have supported in the past, and I think would really work well with this type. So encourage you to think on both fronts. But again, whatever you think is timely and will really have an impact towards those priority areas.
So the last question that we have, and feel free to send us more if you have others, but the last question at this point: what's the maximum loan amount one can request from the Conservation Catalyst Fund?
Well, we have $60,000 in the Conservation Catalyst. We'd like to make at least 1 or 2 loans, so you wouldn't want to ask for over $60,000. And we're more likely to kind of look at the $25,000 to $30,000 range.
So that's it for questions folks have submitted. I'll give you guys a few minutes in case there are others. And just in the meantime, wanted to reiterate, up on the screen right now is my email address. This is Emily Guevara. So feel free to email or call with questions. Again, we have those office hours set up on Thursdays from 10 to noon as a time that we will be available, because sometimes we're not in the office, or we just wanted to make sure there was a time that we had set aside each week where folks could reach us. And again, we are taking appointments just to make sure that we don't get 5 phone calls at the same time. So do let us know if you'd like to take advantage of hours. Outside of that, you can email us or call us any other time, and we'll definitely be as available as possible. I did want to note that, so I provided my email address here, but I'm actually out of the office for the next few days through the end of this week, and I'm back on Monday. So please feel free to send me emails and or messages, and I'll get back to them I'll get back to them on Monday when I return. But also in the meantime, if something urgent comes up, you can call this phone number and ask for Nicola Hedge, and she'll be around this week to answer questions too. So we really want to be available to answer questions, and also just want to reiterate that everything we've covered in this presentation today is it's in the guidelines that are online. So definitely familiarize yourself with that document, and of course, any questions, as I said, let us know. And we will follow up with a recording of this webinar, as well as some of the additional resources, a few reports, as well as some information about our previous grantees. So again, any last-minute questions, feel free to submit them. We'll give you guys a minute or two, because I know it takes a second to type them up.
And thank you. You all are great, too. Thank you for your thank yous. And again, we'll stay on the line for a few more minutes. But I know leave all for your time, and we're looking forward to seeing your project, meeting you all, talking to you all in the future, coming weeks and months. And really, thanks all for joining us today. We'll stay here if a few more questions peter in, but looks like this will conclude the formal part of our presentation.
Pop up on guideline support or overhead percent.
We don't actually provide support. It's better to call out in your proposal. You have a budget. There might be something where you have rent. You might have something for telephone. You might have something for mileage. You can certainly include those, but we won't take a category that's generic that says overhead 15%. So just make sure you spell out what's going to be for staffing, what's going to be for other kinds of office expenses associated with running the organization, associated with the project.
All right. Well, thank you. Seeing no more questions for those still on the line, we're going to wrap up. And again, we're available at the email and the phone number here. And otherwise, hope you have a great week, and look forward to working with you in some way, shape, or form in the future.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.